Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is, in fact, Thursday, so it must be Conversations with Thomas. We are IDAGIO Live, the place where classic music happens. Or is it classical music happens? Well, you get the idea. I've been loving that introduction now for literally over a year. Can we believe that we have been at this for over a year? Which I only say it that way because it was born out of a need an attempt to get artists and their publics, or the publics and the artists they love and music, closer together because of the COVID crisis. And of course, nobody believed this crisis would go on this long, but here we are, still in COVID, hopefully winding down from COVID. But what was always going to be a video line of IDAGIO's very prestigious and prodigious streaming platform, it got bumped up in the schedule, and now we've just sort of locked into wonderful series of lectures and conversations. And if you can believe it, for 12 months I've been doing one on Tuesdays about song and one on Thursdays with all sorts of guests and colleagues and new artists and everything we can possibly come up with. And that is actually what our show is today as well. But I just wanted to say thank you for staying with us. Thank you for your loyalty. Thank you for watching. Thank you for enjoying. Thank you for your feedback. I think sometime I should do a show and just answer all of the questions that have been coming in for some time on various emails. Not a bunch of them, but it might be kind of fun. We'll do a session called Ask Tom Anything. We'll see how that goes. Could be fun. Anyway, tonight we are deep in the leader world with a colleague that I know quite well. I haven't seen that often lately, and a new colleague on my horizon, Jocelyn Freeman. It's great to meet you. I need to adjust my screen here because there we go. Now everybody is equanimous. Welcome to IDAGIO Live. Welcome to Thursdays with Thomas. We're going to talk about all the various projects you're doing, and it's all centered around Music One and big-time leader as well. Julius Drake is somewhere in the world desperately banging his iPhone on the table to get it to connect. So when he comes in, he will come in. But welcome, Jocelyn. We had a chat about Winterreise a couple of weeks ago, which was great fun on another part of this series. But it's great to have you back and great to get caught up and really hear in some kind of expanse your marvelous project. That is, in fact, available, ladies and gentlemen, here's the punchline, on the Global Concert Hall, which is the third extension of the IDAGIO orbit. The IDAGIO.com streaming platform, the IDAGIO Live Talks, or what we will probably start calling IDAGIO Talks, and then, of course, the Global Concert Hall, which really brings the digital world into play, where concerts in live time, as it were, in a digital world are available to you on all of your devices, and lives for some time on the IDAGIO platform. And in fact, what we're going to talk about tonight, which is a series called Wanderlust, and I'll let you tell all about your brain child, but it is available for quite some time on the IDAGIO platform. So don't hesitate to go over and have some wonderful Schubert. But without any more ado, Jocelyn, welcome.
Thank you so much for your invitation to join you. It's wonderful to be here and to be meeting your audiences. And I'm just so excited to be chatting with someone who loves song possibly more than I do, which is really exciting.
I don't know if it's more, but certainly longer.
It's not a competition.
Yeah. Well, I've been wandering around the planet a while. There you are.
Amazing. I love.
Apropos, Jocelyn, tell me something about you. I mean, I don't know you as a colleague. I know some things, but give us the Wikipedia of Jocelyn Freeman. Where did you grow up? Did you want to play basketball and you turned out you could play the piano, or your father gave you a stick and said wave it? Or I mean, how did all this come about?
Well, there was a time in my teens when I actually thought I was going to be an accountant. I was very keen on other things as well. But my earliest musical and career memory is that I got a lovely watch from my Aunt Jane. It had some musical instruments on it. I think it must have been my 7th birthday. And I went and showed my mum and said, well, this is perfect because I'm a musician. So I was maybe a little bit directed in that age from an early stage. I grew up in West Wales.
Oh,
I don't really have
what is
much.
what? Sorry, so for those of us that are geographically challenged, we probably know the word Wales, but what is west versus east versus south versus? Where is Swansea?
Swansea is mid-south.
Mid-south. Okay, I got it.
On the British Islands, we have Scotland up top, England below it, Wales to the left, although it probably looks like the right on your screen, I'm sorry, and then the Ireland there, and then the States further over to the left. So Wales is a little bit like a backwards C joining England. And I'm from the bottom left tip, if that makes sense. And it's not
fantastic.
It's not a rubbish dump. It's absolutely beautiful. It's surrounded by sea. It's got a beautiful coastline. So I grew up there, spent the first 18 years of my life there. I was a chorister in St. David's Cathedral, which really ignited my love of song and of I guess, collaboration. And from there, I started learning piano with the local music teacher who was married to the organist at St. David's Cathedral. And things started there. And then I went to the Royal Academy of Music to study the piano and a bit of voice conducting. And it's
wait, slow down. So we got piano and la 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 and this.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So when did you first start playing the piano?
I first played a note when I was 3.5, and I was toddling around and I banged my head on something in the living room, being slightly fearsome as a kid, not anymore. I lashed out with my hand and hit the piano. It made a lovely sound. And from then on, I liked to toddle up to it and play away.
That's great.
So
any other, do you have siblings?
I have 2 siblings. I have one older and one younger.
Did they bump into the piano as well, or did they stumble on the violin?
They didn't hit so hard. They really didn't hit so hard. But we all sung in the cathedral choir together. And they now work for the National Health Service. So
and mom and dad are musical?
They are both scientists.
Oh my gosh.
So I've taken a different route to them.
But my dad was a scientist too, so we can compare notes.
Oh, fantastic. Yes. What kind of science did your dad do?
Well, chemical nuclear engineer, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Frightfully impressive. I mean, I know he loved me dearly, but there must have been times when he looked at me like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I think mine think the same. Absolutely.
I mean, I just did not get the physics, chemistry, math bug. My next older sister did, and she was the light of his eye. And my oldest sister, there's 3 of us, and my oldest sister, I'm more like her. We got sort of the literary thing, but she's even quite. I mean, she's a professor of ethics and politics, not politics, but philosophy and all that sort of thing. But Dad was a scientist. But he loved his kids, loved the family. Mom was very musical. My mother was one of the most natural musicians I've ever met, and played the piano and the organ and all that sort of thing. So. But is that also? I mean, but both your parents were scientists. So were they amused by this musical thing, or that was showing up? And by the time you were 6 or 7, was it, Mom, I really want to play the piano?
It was more of a general, oh, she's doing this, let's encourage her and let's support her. And if she wants to do this, we're right behind her. So they spent literally hours every week driving me to piano lessons. Really fantastic. I mean, looking back now, it's a big job. Big job to support that. But
it really wasn't about, and this, I'm going to go, this is a little bit about music education. It wasn't really about you becoming a professional musician. It was about, this was a spark of curiosity and creativity and ability in your life that your parents said, this is going to lead to wider interests and her radar and so forth and so on. I imagine that's what it's sounding like to me.
Yes, I think they've never really pushed me in a strong direction, but they just said, if she wants to follow her heart, like what better is there to do? I think,
Right.
and I'm very glad that I had the opportunity to do that.
No, I'm reminiscing, I'm musing, I guess, on the idea that, we as artists today are fighting so hard to keep arts in the school and young people associated with or interested in, and you hear so many, and I mean this in a Socratic way, ignorant people who just don't get the whole arts education thing in the school because, well, what if they don't want to become musicians? And it's hard to, then to back them down and say, well, no, it's not about the profession. It's not about the industry. It's not even, well, to some sense it's a proficiency, but it's really about music as an orientating discipline for the mind, for the curiosity, for the sense of beauty, for the sense of excellence, all those things. So that's kind of what I'm just trying to, I like the idea of you finding your professional life, however, growing up in a world that simply said, yeah, her passion seems to be making musical sounds. It's great. And when she comes home from her accounting job at Merrill Lynch, she can play the piano. I mean, I don't know.
That was the plan at one point. It really was.
I mean, Condoleezza Rice did the same thing. She's an incredibly wonderful pianist, and she even gives concerts. I mean, I've never met her, but it's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's fun. Music is like so broad, and it covers everything. It covers reading, it covers maths.
Yeah.
I mean, on a basic level, like everything's in there, and also a degree of politics, I think, as well, because
Oh my.
often we have to negotiate various different levels of interaction throughout our careers, and it's very interesting. I found this during the pandemic as things have slowed down on the concert stage, but I wanted to explore other aspects associated with the career and make things happen, and just realizing there's so many skills that music gives us all, that we can then apply to other things, and everyone's background sets them up differently for.
Well, now you're really talking about my passion, because my passion is the interconnectivity of disciplines. And yes, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we keep getting this adjoining picture in our screen that I'm sure you're amused by, somebody's unmade bed. And actually we're waiting for Julius Drake, the sensational pianist, to get out of the bed and find himself in front of his camera. But apparently there's some connectivity issues. I think he's on the road, as it were. So bear with us. We're going to keep having a lovely conversation. And when Julius appears in his full glory, that will be quite wonderful. But don't be distracted by the bedroom scenes. What's up, Jocelyn?
Julius has sent me a message saying, it says, Eric Brauer, ist das richtig?
Eric Brauer and Johann. Eric and Johann are the ones that run everything behind the scenes, that make our conversation on IDAGIO Live, over Facebook, over IDAGIO, over YouTube, and all that possible. So we'll just let Julius and Johann work it out, and Julius will show up. Push, it'll be wonderful.
It might be almost clear.
What I would say about the cross distribution, yes, politics is one thing, but actually when you said politics, and when I think of politics with music, I really think about the political world in which all of this music that we recreate is generated from. And it's pretty impossible to really get to the essence of what Schubert was about, without understanding the politics of the day, both real as well as the philosophical politics of the day. So that's kind of, that this interdisciplinary connection. I like to teach teachers of politics and economics and history and so forth how to actually augment their curriculum through songs that were written in their place. Oh my God, here he is. Julius, welcome. He seems frozen.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, you sound a little. Are you on a Jacques Cousteau boat somewhere?
Let me see.
That's not entirely happy, Julius. I'm terribly sorry.
I think I can find somewhere better.
Okay, good. We'll just carry on here, carrying about. So, Jocelyn. Anyway. when you said you thought you'd become an accountant, I mean, at what time when you're 12, 13, 14, you've been studying piano. I mean, you guys started out earlier than the singing. You obviously sang in the choir. So I mean, music is a big thing. Was there some time at that age that already was, gee golly gosh, I'd like to be a musician?
Yes, I remember a distinctive moment when I was in my A-level music class, and the lovely lady who was teaching us, it was two of us in a porter cabin in West Wales in the music class. It was they went to all lengths to make this happen, which was wonderful. And she said, "Oh, the music college open days are in a couple of weeks." And I had a wonderful kind of total U-turn of going, okay, I was emailing this accountancy firm, like looking for just a general place to go and do an internship, and then the thought of the glamorous world of music college, and she had pointed me in the direction of London as well, and I thought, well, I kind of have to go and check this out, don't I? And that, I think that was probably the seed sown that meant I had my heart set on London.
Right. Didn't
really look back after that, actually.
Now, I have a really silly question for you.
Go for it.
Do you speak Welsh?
Dim ond tip and bach.
Ah, there we go. She was waiting for it. Julius, welcome. Great to see you. It looks like you solved the connectivity, and this is a much nicer room than your unkept bed.
You're in a magnificent room. God, look at those bookshelves.
Well, this is why I really don't like to travel very much anymore. And this wall is the parallel to that. That wall is music, and this wall is books, and there's records, and it's whatever. It's my music room. There we are. How are you? Where are you?
I'm in Munich.
Ah, you're in Munich.
Yeah.
In an apartment? Are you living in Munich now, or what?
No. I'm staying with a friend.
Okay.
I just did something at the Hochschule, and I'm going on the train to Graz tomorrow. I have a half-time professorship in Graz, so I'm going there tomorrow.
In Graz, exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know when I'm returning back to London, because the quarantine requirement of 10 days in isolation plus all the costs involved, it doesn't really make it practical. And I'm, like every other musician, I'm waiting to see which concerts get cancelled and which ones don't get cancelled.
I know. It's unbearable, isn't it? I mean, you weren't on. We were talking about, the fact that this series started a year ago because of the pandemic, even though we were going to do it anyway. But, I just personally cannot believe that we're having this part of the conversation 12 months later. It astounds me. I would have never believed it.
No. Me neither. But it is what it is, and we just have to make the best of it we can. And now it's frustrating because the vaccinations in the Britain is the only thing they have done right, and it's making a big difference. But of course, then you come to the continent, and they're still a month or two behind. So
it is startling and disturbing. We don't want to turn this into a political talk show, but I must say, having spent so much of my time and my life over here in Europe in various German-speaking countries, I'm astounded at the scandalous incompetence of the European Union to vaccinate its own. And I'm glad to put it that strongly. I would have never believed that the European Union would have been so inept to collectively fight this pandemic. And as you well know, what you sort of intimated, and any of us that are trying to travel, is that all of the regulations, all of the requirements, all the stipulations, all of the paperwork are completely and utterly unique and isolated to each individual country. So the word European community doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. We flew back and forth to Vienna from Zurich last week, and it was like flying to Novosibirsk. It's just incredible. Okay, well, we have to get through it. You're absolutely right. But my stepson lives in London, so I know exactly what you're talking about with the absolutely draconian problems of travel and regulation between, and of course Brexit doesn't exactly help. You can riff on Brexit later if you'd like.
Don't get me started on Brexit.
Yeah, don't get me. I'll hold your coat, dear friend. I mean, I just hello. Anyway, we're obviously new now. Now, we caught up with Jocelyn. You get to give us the 2.5 minute Wikipedia of your wonderful life. Where were you born? Do you have siblings that care about music? Did you also bump your hand on the piano, or did you actually want to play soccer like all the rest of our colleagues? Where did this all come from, Julius?
I was one of those weird children who actually liked playing the piano better than most things in life, certainly better than school. I started when I was 7, and I always liked it. My piano teacher was very good at encouraging me. I was no wunderkind, but I was always passionate about it. And I think my parents recognized very early on that I would likely be a musician, that it's the thing I cared about most. So I went to a music school when I was 12.
Right. Oh, okay.
There I was.
And where was this?
In London.
In London, right.
Yeah, I went to the Purcell School for young musicians.
Wonderful.
And that gave me the chance to practice as much as I wanted, which was more or less all the time, apart from chasing girls around the garden at school.
Well, you needed a break every so often.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's so much more fun than football.
Yes. Well, I think so anyway.
Yeah.
But and then I went to the Royal College of Music, and I had the advantage. I'd had all those years playing as much as I wanted, solo repertoire, and it was in my first year at the Royal College. I played chamber music for the first time, and it was like a Damascus moment. I mean, I just thought, this is what I want to do. I don't want to play on my own. I want to always have somebody I'm making music with. And from then on, I concentrated all through college on being a collaborative pianist, playing chamber music, whether it's actually not with singers then, it was always with instrumentalists, but it was all chamber.
Do you think that's a good thing for collaborative singer pianists, that they have this extensive chamber music experience as well?
Yeah, because I think that it is an extension of chamber music, that it is a form of chamber music, and as much as it's more than one person making music together, you've just got this added dimension, which I discovered later in my 20s, of words, which brings a whole new element to it. But in every other way, it's like working with a violinist or a cellist or a clarinetist, in as much as you've both got musical lines and you're fitting together, and you can discuss the music, and then song you have this wonderful extra thing, which is the words.
Right, Jocelyn, does that ring a bell to you as well?
So many bells, yes. I was definitely I loved preparing music as a kid, and when I went to the Royal Academy of Music, and probably in my 3rd year there, I started playing for song classes and pulling together, I guess, my background as a chorister and then working with singers. It all sort of finally fell into place, and I realized that was what I wanted to do as well. Although when I went to London to study when I was 18, I had my heart set on playing piano trios, because I'd seen some of these. We'd had some wonderful ensembles visit West Wales, and I'd turned pages for a few, and the repertoire was just so exciting, Beethoven trios, and that was one of the first things I did when I was in an institution with lots of other musicians. It was just to see if I could find a violinist and a cellist, and we got on with some Beethoven. I think it was the early C minor trio that really had whet my appetite for chamber music.
In the music schools in London, is it a very active chamber music scene?
When I was there was definitely opportunities. There was lots of opportunities to create opportunities, and there was always coaching available. There were platforms, lunchtime recitals, you name it. And so we had an opportunity to balance both our solo lessons and our solo exams and preparations with chamber music as well.
Now in London, we've got the Royal College, we've got Guildhall, we've got the Royal Academy. What else? I mean, those are the big 3, right?
Yeah, those are the big 3, and there's also...
Is it huge competition amongst them? I mean, do you all talk to one another?
Yes, but I think it is. There is competition, isn't there, Jocelyn?
Definitely.
Yeah. It's healthy competition, I think.
I think it's healthy competition. Yeah, I went to the academy, and there wasn't a lot of exchange with Royal College students at the time, but we'd often pop over to the Barbican and meet Guildhall people. And then I completely crossed a line and I went and did a fellowship at the Royal College. So I wasn't disowned. It was great to see that actually both places are fantastic, and they both have really great strengths. And I mean, the Royal College is right next to the Albert Hall, which is really inspiring.
Oh yeah,
I went to the Royal College.
You went to Royal College. Well, I believe that I'm an on-ram. That would be the academy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, and I felt extraordinarily special that day, I must say. And who should have been interned, as they say, on the same day and sat next to me was Wynton Marsalis. And from that day forward, we've just remained really quite close friends. And I remember that it was actually, I think, due to Donald Mitchell. And the whole Mahler thing at the time and whatever, but it was an extraordinary afternoon and an amazing environment. But I haven't had much to do with English academics at all. I worked a lot in London, but I've always wondered how the relationship between the various major organizations, because they all have generated, or however you want to say, produced extraordinary artists to this day. I mean, the working professionals are could be from either one of those, any of those institutions.
Do you think the same there would be in New York with Manhattan School of Music and the Juilliard, and in Berlin with Hans Eisler, and I don't know.
But, yeah,
they all have various institutions, don't they? And they're all looking for the talent, to bring the talent to their institution and find it.
Well, I think that's true, and I'm very, very close. In fact, I'm on the board of trustees of the Manhattan School of Music, and love the institution deeply. And I think we look at the ecumenical music community in New York, and I have a feeling sometimes that Juilliard peers out a window and realizes that someone else is teaching music as well. Now, I'm saying that somewhat in jest as a competitive thing, but
where did you go?
I think. I didn't. I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Spokane, from a private Catholic college where my voice teacher was, and a wonderful music staff. But when I came out, and I have another degree in political science, so I have two bachelor's degrees, and then the voice sort of showed up, and I went down to California to the Music Academy of the West, and USC in the opera workshop for a while, and did competitions and won money, and went to Germany and got a job. And my literature teacher was Gwendolyn Kodowski, which was Lotte Lehmann's pianist in Santa Barbara, and my voice teacher in Spokane had been a student of Lotte Lehmann in the summers in Santa Barbara as well. And when I was down there, it was Marcel Sanger. So I'm a perfect example of, well, let's see if you can put this together, and you coach and learn. And I was pretty passionate about song from the get-go. One of my first voice lessons was this marvelous teacher, Sister Marietta Coyle, yes, a nun. And since I was raised Seventh-day Adventist, this is all very exotic. But she said, I understand you've had some German in high school. Did you know that there's German poetry that's been set to music? No, you can't be serious. So she hands me a couple of volumes of Chopin and Schumann and 4 or 5 records of Fischer Dieskau, Pry, Tom Krause, or whatever. So go home, have a listen, brother. Maybe something will catch your eye or your ear. And the rest, they say, is history. I mean, it just completely, pardon the phrase, blew me away. I mean, I couldn't. I thought it was some of the most beautiful expressions of human being that I'd ever heard in my life. I loved what was being said, as well as being sung. So anyway, this show is not about Thomas Hampson. It is about Julius Drake and Jocelyn Freeman. But I wanted to get an idea where this bug, because we're all very passionate about song. We're all passionate about the literature, the activity, the stage life. There's various things we could break that down into. But I think people sometimes don't see us as human beings. They see us as people on the bench or standing in front of it. And so it's always fun, especially in this series, an IDAGIO series, to let people get to know you guys, or all of us, at the same time, that we're pretty normal people. And I remember a couple of colleagues, I wanted to play football, but turns out I was a musician. That's one of the reasons I love Andy Laya. You know, this guy's just gung ho to go out and change the world and kill somebody and do what he's got to do, and then he kind of goes, "Oh God damn it, I've got a lyre in my hand." You know,
Music
I
is
get,
beautiful.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, so when did you, Julius? When did we meet? Well, I remember meeting you. I must have been quite early on. I'm not that much older, but it just seemed because you were quite a protege of Geoffrey Parsons, weren't you?
I
Can I
was,
say that?
yes,
Is that an offensive word?
no, I'm very proud to have been a protege of Geoffrey Parsons. I loved him dearly, but I didn't study. He didn't teach at any of the colleges, so I didn't learn
No.
with him at the Royal College. But after college, I went and had a private lesson with him, I think. And after that, he took an interest. So I felt, as you say, a protege. If a protege is somebody taking an interest in you, he would come. If I was doing a concert, he would come along and listen, and he would give me notes afterwards, which I always thought was very generous. And I would go over to Iverson Road and West Hampstead and play for Eric, his partner's lessons.
You did play for Eric's lessons.
Yes, I got chased around the piano by Eric, like everybody else.
I never did. It was total business. I met Eric, and it was a daunting personality, but it was Elizabeth Schwarzkopf who put me with Geoffrey, literally, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I am eternally grateful.
Yeah, and I went to hear. And at that time, it was after I left college that I began to get mad about song, and part
Right.
of that was hearing Geoffrey play with all the great singers
Oh my God.
coming into London, and I would religiously go and hear them. I was totally smitten, and so to have the opportunity to go to play to him, and he was so kind. If I think how I played and how I really had not a clue, I am eternally grateful to him for being so kind.
Did you have that kind of mentor, Jocelyn? And did you ever meet? I don't know if you're even remotely old enough to have met Geoffrey or seen Geoffrey. Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
I never met him. I mean, I have so much admiration for his recordings and his story. And there was a room, I think, at the Royal Academy of Music, the Geoffrey Parsons room, and
Right.
that was definitely one of my favorite places to go and muse. When I was in the academy, I took a few years, and then I went down the song route, and I played for quite a few singers. And my teacher at the academy was Michael Dusick, and we also got to work a lot with Audrey Highland, who now is at the Royal College. She's jumped ships, controversially, but she's having a fantastic time there, from what I know. So I worked with her a lot, and with Michael, and then I had a few years. When I left my studies, I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a little while to digest everything. And then I got onto the Britten Peers Foundation Young Artist Program, and had, I think, 3 years of amazing courses there. I never met Julius at that point. I think he came the year after I stopped. But I worked a lot with Roger Vignoles there, who was really helpful. And
Graham Johnson.
We overlapped at the academy for a masterclass. Actually, I think we did Andy Lyer as well. Full circle there.
Right.
So mainly, I think I worked with Roger for about 3 years on and off at St. Maltings, and then I went to play to Julius as well several years ago, and that made quite an impression on me. And I've played to him several times since, and I hope this is something that will keep going.
Okay, that's what I want to get to. So in this relationship, I mean, we're going to talk about the Wanderlust show and all that sort of thing, and obviously your wonderful calendar, Julius. But that's how you two know each other.
Yes,
I mean, everybody knows you, Julius.
That is not true, but I was going to say to you, Tom, that what's one of the wonderful things about being a musician. I am sure you'll probably agree with me, is that it's an ageless thing, and that when I actually do meet someone like Jocelyn, even if Jocelyn comes for a lesson, I don't really feel any different in age from her. I feel that I'm in the same place, more or less. That because we're all of us, I know it sounds ridiculously idealistic, but because all of us have got this great love for the music, and we're all struggling to do the best we can with it. We're all trying. We're all pitting ourselves against or at least we're putting ourselves on the line every time we walk onto a stage and play a concert. And I always feel that that it's a learning process for us all at whatever stage we are, and I never feel that I'm in the situation where I'm the master who knows all the answers. All I feel is that probably I've been doing it for a bit longer, but the whole thing is an ongoing process. It's something that I'm trying to get better at. And
I think that's extremely well said. I mean, I have to pinch myself sometimes. I ask young students that are working with me, wherever I might be, and they're 40 years younger than me. It's just, never ever. Yeah. And also but my point really is not that. My point that I think that I really want to drill with you on is wonderful. This idea of music and mentoring and teaching, this passing of the experience, as especially someone who is very much in a full calendar. And I got into teaching very early on. When I studied my BFA is centered around comparative vocal pedagogies, which has always completely fascinated me and still does, and I have quite a wonderful library of vocal books. But it was John Barry who invited me up to the Brereton Music Festival, and he said, you should be teaching. I said, crying out, I'm in the middle, I'm busy. Nobody wants to listen to me. I'm not a teacher. And he said, no, that's exactly what we want at Brereton. We want people who take time out for a week in their busy schedule to simply listen to their colleagues and maybe tell them, and try it. And it was one of the great gifts of my life that he did this. And the other gift was one of my weeks was literally butted up against Birgit Nielsen. So we had 2 days where I went to her classes and she came to mine. The only thing she said to me was this: lovely ideas, lovely. I've always loved to sing songs, but I'm so glad that I didn't study with you. And I was absolutely crushed at lunch. And she took a bite of her side. She said, I don't think I could have sung soft enough to make you happy. But she was amazing. I mean, but then she would go in and teach these kids and say, no, quit yelling. You need to sing. When I sing, I think of my voice as a pinpoint in front of me. And, she was incredible.
The force of nature.
Oh my God. And humor and smart and no, she was wonderful. Anyway, but exactly what you were describing is, I think, what we're all, is that how you see, Jocelyn? We've got a couple of generations going here on the screen, but when you work with younger people now, or you're mentoring some young singers, but then you're working with a mature artist, with Julius, I mean, are what we sang just a couple of old white guys, or are we on the right track?
I mean, I've grown up with sort of really admiring Julius and really admiring you. And this is, I was hoping you would say. I think it's quite hard to bust this thing of these guys are simply amazing and I want to be like them. But it's so nice as well to sort of realize that what I'm doing is working. And it still comes as a bit of a surprise. I'll be totally honest here. I'll go, actually, yes, the series is on IDAGIO. This is amazing. I still have to pinch myself a little bit. But then absolutely when I'm working with younger singers, I do love it to be that exchange. And I love it when they'll come up and say, actually, can you play this bit a little bit with a phrasing like this? Or can I hear more of your left hand at this point? And I'm like, oh yes, well, this is fantastic. And music has to be this exchange. Music has to be alive. And if it's a duo, it has to have that creativity. And that's really what I love about collaborating and collaborative music. It's inspirational on so many levels, and you can learn so much from your colleagues. It's beautiful.
I'm Julius, I'm sure you said like me. I absolutely love these new ideas that can come out, and some of them you might, it might be in a box you check off to say, oh, I better have a look at that because it's wrong, and then you realize, no, that's coming. Why are you doing that? And then to have a singer or even a pianist, well, I was thinking this, or I'm trying this, and to be able to say, well, what I got was this. And they go, oh, no, God, no, that's not what I want to do at all. Well, do it again. Tell me a different story. And this kind of, and I'm only going to this also for our public, because very often I think our public, our non-music making public on a professional or amateur level, tend to think of it like it's chemical and mathematical equations that you need to get right and then it happens. And actually making music is as much about a soulful conversation as it is the ability to make the notes.
Absolutely. And also making music, there isn't a right way and there isn't a wrong way of doing it. It's the only thing is that it has to be sincere and it has to be convincing. It has to make something come alive for the people who listen. And so, one thing's for sure, for instance, that Johann Sebastian Bach never imagined any of his music would sound like Glenn Gould made it sound. But Glenn Gould was a genius. He was a great musician, and that's how he felt the music. If someone else played it like that, it would not be right. But because it came from his self with such conviction, he left us this wonderful gift of the way he reimagined and felt Bach. And I feel all of us on a lesser level than that are doing the same. Every great piece of music we tackle is going through the filter of our brains and our souls and our imaginations and our experience. And there's no one to say that anyone's is more important or more right than anyone else's. All you can do, I think, is feel the music and then try and convey the enormous amount of feeling you get from the music to the audience.
Yes, and I agree with you all of that. There is, however, if the song's in D major, we're not going to play C minor. I mean, there are rules and structures to allow us to make this truth audible. And I say that because, being an American, I'm so glad to not be daily assaulted by the group of people who believe facts to have alternate versions. That's just that as a musician is just an anathema, this kind of thought process. But like I said, we're not going to go down the road. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like to do, I'm going to do a screen share here. The next thing you're going to see, with any kind of luck at all, are some websites. And I thought, let me just drop. Now, this is an advertisement actually, or a critic. Seen and Heard International. Wanderlust brings Mark Padmore and Julius Drake to Blackheath Halls. But I really wanted to go, first of all, this is going to be Jocelyn's home. This is your website. Please check out Jocelyn Freeman's website. There's a lot of wonderful information, lovely picture, and who you are, what you do, and where you come from, and so forth, but not nearly as extensive as we've had it in projects and recordings. And, of course, we can also then jump over to Julius Drake's. I love the title and the URL is the official website of Julius Drake. I'm presuming there's all sorts of illicit naked photos somewhere else. I don't know. That's not my problem. There's some wonderful moments captured in YouTube. There's our good friend Ian Bostridge, and of course Julius's calendar is a who's who of whoever can sing wherever in today's world, which is very exciting. And I mean, truly, really wonderful,
Thank you,
Julius. And then if we go over here, what I've done now is, this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the website of IDAGIO. What I'm going to do, this is probably your landing page. If you just go to IDAGIO, you're going to see new things, or maybe this is the landing page here. Mm-hmm. Come along. No, I guess that's it. Feature new albums and so on. One of the things I always like to tell people about, which is really, really fun, if you belong to the IDAGIO community, you can have things called playlists. And playlists follow you on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your Android, whatever else, or on your computer. And it's just really great fun. So you're listening to, well, let's go back one to Julius is here. So we're back on Julius. Let's go to wherever your discography was. Oh, I'm making a fool of myself here. I don't want to get on all this. I don't want to browse so much time. Anyway, if you're into something like Monteverdi and you pull up a record and you like this, you go over here and you can put it in your playlist. And when you do that, then you can, these are my playlists, but I'm not, so you would create a new playlist. And the fun thing is that instantaneously that cut is in your playlist, and you can just program your playlist for your walk or going in the car or whatever else. I love this. The other fun thing about, if you go to the chevron here, then you get a bit more information about this. And let's see if this happens. If you play this from here, now I have to stop this. There we go. You see this over here. This listing pops up of every other recording of that precise cut in the IDAGIO database. Now, if you students watching this would just pause for a minute and think about that. That means if you're studying the Winterreise and you're looking at Frühlingstraum, and you do that, and you push on Frühlingstraum on Adagio, the right side of your screen is going to be inundated with every other recording of Frühlingstraum, should you want to drop your needle around listening to songs. And of course, the comparison of unknown and known songs. It's a wonderful website. It's very, very deep and very extensive. Hundreds of thousands of hours of tracks. I think well over 2 to 2.5 million tracks here. But what's the genius about Adagio coming is we are really building an orbit where the access to this database becomes useful in education ways, in information ways, augmenting of concert experiences. And of course, if you go down here, this is Jocelyn Freeman's. These are a couple of her recent things. Actually, what I'm pulling up here in these two are the two concerts that are on the Global Concert Hall available now. I'm not sure if one of yours, Julius, is coming in the future, but as you can see, it will be available Central European Standard Time until October. You can see this Wanderlust series of Schubert's Winterreise. And if you go down here, the Schubert Labs, and you have what's on in the Global Concert Hall. And these are all the things from the various corners of the world that you can have a look at. You really should become a wonderful partner and member of the Adagio community. It is not particularly expensive. I'm not trying to sell you something, but for a very marginal cost, you have access to, well, it becomes a music library in your pocket. So enough about Adagio. I just wanted a quick jump on this, and this is a thing, and then here's the Wanderlust series. So Jocelyn, you're on. This is part of something called Song Easel, which I inappropriately read as Easel, and felt quite close to it. And Easel, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is a jackass in English, but never mind. Song Easel, which has the Wanderlust series. I'm going to come back out of this, but ladies and gentlemen, this is on Jocelyn's website. Please do have a look after this. And this, if you forget all of this, you can go back in on Adagio and watch this particular part of our interview to get your reference again. Tell us about Song, Easel, and Wanderlust.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you very much for that, Thomas. Really great to see all of the different aspects of the Idagio website. I came up with Song Easel in 2018. I wanted to... Actually, this was as a result of chatting with Julius for the first time, and I found out about how he started his song journey, and inspired as I was, I wanted to emulate a little bit, not to copy, but to set up a song series, set up a platform for song in Southeast London. So Southeast London is often abbreviated to SE in postcodes, and so I wanted to take those two things. We have song, that's an obvious choice, and I took quite a long while to find the Easel part. But is that where
this spectacular sounding place called Blackheath is? I've actually been in the auditorium. It's quite wonderful.
Yes, it is. It's in Southeast London. It's in a beautiful part of Southeast London, overlooking a lot of the city. You can see some of the iconic buildings from Greenwich Park. It's very close to Greenwich. Lovely place to go walking, just to lose yourself for a few hours wandering around there at various times of year. Very, very beautiful and sort of nurturing the soul in these times of pandemic. Right. And
excuse me, Jocelyn, why were you passionate about Southeast London? Why Southeast London? Why not Northwest London?
Very good question. At the time, I was working quite a lot in Southeast London. There's a church where I hold quite a lot of my song recitals in Catford, which is it's been a really rewarding place to build classical music, actually.
It's where you live as well, isn't it, nearby?
It's where I used to live. I think I was living there at the time. I mean, sometimes on a weekend it's really hard to get to. You go there and you're stuck if the engineering works on the train. But I was living there, I was working there, and I was realizing that there's quite a lot of scope for developing song in that area. I've since moved slightly further north within Southeast London, but it's just something that, when something feels right, you're like, yes, I need to do this. And so I thought, this is the area I'm going to focus on. I've got a good link here with the church, and I managed to develop a relationship with Blackheath Halls, which is a beautiful hall in the area, one of the most iconic for sure. And so with these, I guess the various aspects fell into place. I think you can never truly plan a project from scratch and expect everything that you plan to happen, but it was so great when these various elements came together. So I did some fundraising that year, and the next year held my first song series, which was called From Russia with Love. I explored...
Clever title, that.
I know. Although I did have a few people caution me because of recent Novichok incidents in Salisbury around that time. So it was, I went into it with caution. But the real aim was to explore Russian repertoire that wasn't really that well known. So we had, what did we have? We did quite a lot of Poulenc, Prokofiev. I did a lovely program with some Poulenc. There was
Glinka?
No Glinka that time, actually. But we had Prokofiev in each recital, and I sort of paired it with different European countries. So one concert, we had Wales and Russia.
Right.
You'd be surprised that there are actually links. And then we did Italy and Russia, we did France and Russia, and Germany and Russia. And it was just really interesting.
I think that sort of entrepreneurial idea is something that has really grown up in the last few years. I've been part of it too, that the idea, and Graham Johnson certainly inspired me a lot, the idea that actually at the piano we have the music, we also have the same passionate interest in the words that the singer hopefully has, but that we're in a way in a very good position to come up with ideas for series that join up all the dots, and we can make something that is a platform for song.
Well, and quite frankly, Julius, that is exactly what IDAGIO.com, among other things, is about as well. It is the platform to open the doors and windows with you for whatever, or with us for whatever presenter is trying to do, but especially in song. It's one of my absolute passions about moving forward in the world of accessibility that the digital world obviously gives us. But I agree with you. There is a real blossoming of, let us give you concerts. Let us give you community.
Yeah, and that is often coming from the piano rather than necessarily from the singers, and so that you're getting, we can be almost progenitors for this sort of idea that song flourishes, or song is as important for the piano as it is for the voice, in a way.
Right. Yes.
Songs are written from the piano. Often they're written by composers who piano was their first instrument, and whether it's Schubert or Schumann or Brahms or
all of them,
or Debussy,
most of them,
or Fauré, or and so on, and so sitting there at the piano, in a way, one is almost like the composer. And the singer comes in and delivers the poem, which is the thing that started the whole process, because this song wouldn't exist if this composer hadn't read that poem.
True.
I often think that's
many times.
Yes, and I always think that's one of the miracles of a song, is that the composer has read this poem and then has come up with this amazing music to express it. He's moved enough, or she's moved enough by the poem to actually find music within themselves to express it. That's one of the things I love about song, that in fact originally there was a poem there, and it was a poem that did enough to actually inspire this music. Because as we know, the poem is not always great. Not every poet is Goethe. And some amazing songs have been written to really what could only be called very minor poems. But nevertheless, they did a wonderful thing because they inspired this wonderful music.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tour. I'm really not very preoccupied with the quality of the poem. I'm completely preoccupied with the sincerity of it. But for instance, I just feel very strongly that the poetry as a function of language is essentially a metaphor of thought, and the same thing with music, and the two art forms don't need one another, and they don't seem to me to be subjugated to one another. It seems to be more of equanimity, which certainly one can be carrying the ball, but when a poem becomes musical, it's no longer a poem anyway.
Yes,
and that's really what I mean. And so if there are some great poems set to music, and there are some poems that perhaps wouldn't live, but I think we have to be careful of that conversation, because then you start talking about living poetry today. I mean, how much poetry is living today, but. It seems to me the dialogue of the effort of poem and music to say the same thing about something that happened in a personal life is what captures my imagination, rather than oh gee, I wish Schubert hadn't wasted his time on this poem. You know,
absolutely, I couldn't.
I know that's not what you mean, but some people say it like that.
No, absolutely. But I also always think, and I don't know if you both agree, that in the end, the relevant thing for us as singers, as musicians, is actually what the composer felt about the poem. Because sometimes you say, for instance, Heine poems, it would appear in this Heine setting that Schubert or Schumann didn't really hear or feel the irony that we can see in the poem, if you like. And really, the relevant thing for us is what Schumann felt about the poem when we're interpreting it.
Right.
The poem is not independent for us, musicians. So we are seeing it through the filter of the of the composer's imagination. And so that's what matters. It's what we feel Schumann set in this Heine poem that matters, rather than what Heine originally had there.
And then you get another filter, and that is that we're talking in 2021 about Heine, who is writing in 1821. And I apropos that Schumann concept, there are very few moments when I feel like Schumann, with his extraordinary literary abilities, and who am I to judge, but it seems really audacious for us to say that Schumann wasn't quite on top of Heine's irony. And I just wonder whether the irony was not meant to be as explicit as we make it today, post-Freud and post-Bethlehem.
Indeed.
But again, these are filters. I mean, you're right. We just keep going back and forth, and out of all of this conversation and so forth comes that 3.5 minute moment that we make alive, and you and I would walk off and have a beer and say, okay, on Thursday, why don't we try it this way? This is to me the liveliness of the school. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. I want to keep on going. Why song Easel, and why Wanderlust? And in the series of Wanderlust, what will we be hearing? And I think with the Wanderlust, you were also, in this series, you were deeply focused on Willem Müller, which, God bless you.
That's right. So Song Easel is, I guess, the umbrella with which I engage with Southeast London and put a lot of energy into creating these, I guess, opportunities and projects. And it's a nice little, it sits there as my little Southeast London jug on my mantelpiece, as it were. I've always loved the Schubert song cycles, and I've often felt they are, in some ways, this iconic work that I'm still too young for. And I decided
we all feel that way.
Don't we? I mean, how could we ever feel ready for them? In some ways, is what I feel about them. They are such incredible music. And I decided I'm just going to bite the bullet. I've reached a stage in my life where I'm going to go, yes, I'm going to play them all. And and so that's where Wanderlust came from. Wilhelm Müller, I love the fact that he was fascinated by travel, and he was fascinated by Rome in particular, and various Greek political movements. But Rome was a big thing for him, and traveling was a big thing for him. But also that I think he had quite an intense inner journey as well, an inner life. He wasn't that lucky in love, and he had these, I think, torturous moments where he realized that I think it was Louise Hensel, didn't like him like he liked her. And so a lot of this went into his poetry in a really beautiful way. And Schubert found Die Schöne Müllerin around 10 years, I think it was less than 10 years after the poetry was written, and became this wonderful marriage of words and music. And what better place to start a song series than such an incredible marriage and such an incredible artistic, creative combination. So that was the inspiration. And it's taken various different shapes along the last year. Actually, it's now 14 months since the first concert. I'd initially planned it as 3 concerts in Blackheath Halls and 3 concerts in Catford, all live streamed because technology was progressing. I wanted to reach a larger audience. One concert down, the pandemic struck. Die Schöne Müllerin was cancelled indefinitely. Julius was lined up to do a Beethoven celebration in Blackheath Halls, and I just decided we have to take this online. We have to keep artists playing. We have to keep music being created. And so I rejigged the whole setup a little bit. Julius recorded live with Mark. This is now on IDAGIO along with the 3 Schubert song cycles.
Fantastic.
And it's just so great to have got to the other side, having been looking at this song series for a year, literally, and going, is this going to happen? And it's great. We managed to do Die Schöne Müllerin with a distanced audience in September and record it live with a wonderful pre-concert talk from Natasha Logis and
who sang it?
As Julian van Melletz. He's a young Kiwi baritone.
I know Julian very well. He's a wonderful young New Zealand baritone who won the Wigmore. And he's been to Heidelberg and Boulez Saal, and we just saw each other in Royamoy. He's a wonderful young baritone. One in Verbier. I mean, he's really making his way, isn't he?
He really is. I mean, he's simply wiped.
And it was you when we invited him for the debut recital series in Boulez, Julius.
Yeah,
that was
I was
one
there
of the last times we saw.
I'm very happy to be so. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Keep up on him. And who sang that? And the Winterreise, we had a conversation with a couple of weeks ago. This wonderful young soprano.
That's right. Yeah. So we have a wonderful virtual green room at the end of Winterreise.
Right.
With Thomas Hampson. It was with the wonderful young Nigerian American soprano Francesca Chiagina. Fantastic to do this with a soprano, so traditionally done with a gentleman. So really lovely voice, and very exciting to explore this with her. We also went into 3 schools a couple of weeks ago, which I'm really excited to share, and had over 100 kids singing Winterreise. So I'm really excited to share this in due course, but it's been absolutely humbling to see how well they've taken to the most iconic
listen to us having this conversation. I mean, quite frankly, without this pandemic, I wonder whether the 3 of us would have found each other together to have this conversation. And that's the whole point. I mean, I know there's a lot of people concerned, oh, well, you know, I don't want this digital, I want to go to concerts again. Of course. But we are in a new now, and I see with everybody, whether you wanted to or not, being catapulted into the digital orbit, as it were, for your grandchildren, your children, or you're ordering food because you're in lockdown, whatever it is, everyone is instantly more up to speed with the easiness of digital communication. And we've just taken that to another level, so that something like a Southeast London series, which probably someone like me would never get to. I'd never get to. But here, or wherever you are sitting watching this interview, now you've got such a wide access point into various geographical communities, various artists you've always wanted to know about, that you can drop the needle on, you can have a listen to, or you can spend the whole time there and have the concert. And these wonderful digital green rooms are quite fun. All of the Global Concert Hall, that's a prerequisite. The artists must participate, and they gladly do. And we get questions mailed in. You know, one of the first one was Mari Samuelson, you know, and she had a beautiful concert live, and, you know, people were writing in during the concert and, oh, this and that, and questions about a violin. This is a liveliness that I think we're going to carry with us moving forward. And that was really my next question to you, and last question is we have found ourselves in a new now, and we're going to come out of this new now into yet another newer now. Sorry to keep the metaphor going, but I want to believe that the augmentation and the enhancement that we have used as a saving of artistic communication in the digital realm can become an embracing, enveloping, and possibility thinking platform moving forward. Absolutely no competition, and should not even be thought of in that way, to live performance. Is it feeling like that to each of you?
I think it's going to stay, as you were saying. I think it's something that's going to stay with us long after COVID, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, for instance, the Wigmore Hall is saying that they have bravely and enterprisingly put on concerts throughout the pandemic, and the audience, they've noticed, is they're reaching, if you like, parts that their ordinary in-person concerts simply can't reach. That the fact is, you can tune in wherever you are and you can see this concert and you can hear this concert. I agree with you. It isn't a replacement for a live experience. There is no replacement for that. But it's an enhancement of a concert. It's a way of reaching out beyond the normal catchment. And that surely is what we as musicians so want to do, is we want to reach the world. We want to show the world this wonderful music, how wonderful it is, why we're so passionate about it, why it can change your life, is what we're doing it for. We passionately believe that, and if we can do that, even in a small way, through digital concert halls, then I think it's a wonderful thing, and I hope it'll stay.
I agree.
It will stay. Yeah. Jocelyn, you get the last word. Wrap it up.
Oh, wow. Okay, no pressure then.
Well, that's not true. I get the last word, but you get the real last. You get the last profundity.
Yes, I very much agree. It's made, the whole pandemic has, I guess, streamlined the music profession. We've had to find a way to keep reaching our audiences. We've had to find a way to keep finding a means for this expression, which means so much for us. And I think also Stefan Logus and Natasha Logus, when we were doing the pre-concert talk, the virtual green room for Schwanengesang, they said it's really opened their eyes to other music, which is as accessible as the Wigmore Hall. And it's really made a bit more of an equal playing field. But I think first and foremost, I think everyone's realized how it is actually possible to have a meeting across two countries or across multiple countries, and how creativity can actually be enhanced by the ease of meeting at such a long distance on Zoom, for example. It's of course it was possible before, but we never had to do it. So now there's this amazing opportunity to collaborate right across the world from your front room in your slippers, and to share music with someone live at a similar distance. And that's really incredible. And I'm really interested to see where this takes us creatively as well. There's so many possibilities, but first and foremost, live audiences are going to be so well valued when they're allowed back.
I just spent a couple of wonderful hours in the Internet 2 convention or meeting they had online earlier this week. And what is really exciting is that the technological abilities to do exactly what you're saying. I mean, technology in our world should be super, and if it's really, really good, you don't notice it. And that's what we just need to get better and better at. And there's a bit of a frontier out there, but there's also a catching up. We can even do better than we're doing technologically for people in various aspects, as you say, in their slippers or jogging pants or whatever else. But wonderful summation. We could go on and talk about education. We could go on and talk about other things. We could also bitch about Brexit. But in fact, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to say good night. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being on IDAGIO Live. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for us. Thank you from all three of us that you would carry on with this conversation for what has now been a nice hour. Julius, I promise, is going to go make his bed after this. And I'm going to dust my books off, whatever. Exactly. Anyway, everybody, I will see you next week. Thank you very much for joining.